Hello, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to the 12th edition of the GATCA Technical Webinar Series. My name is Wilhelm Sakite Nyakun, an air traffic controller with the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, and it is my pleasure to host today's webinar. I begin the program with a short prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today's webinar. Please guide the deliberations and deepen our understanding of content that is to be shared. Amen. Air travel has been touted to be the safest means of transportation globally. The key role air traffic services plays in the accomplishment of this feat cannot be overemphasized. As a result, research is continually being conducted to find ways of enabling the custodians of the airspace to maintain high safety standards in order to prevent accidents and minimize incidents. The theory of human factors was incorporated into air traffic control after it was realized that errors caused by air traffic controllers could be traced to more underlying factors rather than just a case of incompetency. In addressing human factors issues, the concept of team resource management has been introduced. The basis of team resource management was derived from evidence that indicated that a sizable number of operational incidents were traced back to failures in human performance and teamwork. How then is this concept able to tackle these failures and enable air traffic controllers and, in the broader picture, ANSPs, ensure safe and efficient operations? This edition of the GATCA Technical Webinar Series shall delve into the critical role of team resource management in transforming air navigation service providers into high-performing, safety-focused organizations. Key discussion areas we will be looking at include understanding the fundamentals of team resource management, exploring team resource management's essential role in today's dynamic aviation environment, assessing how it contributes directly to operational safety, efficiency, and reliability, the benefits it brings to ANSPs, understanding teams, and implementing team resource management in ANSPs. Today, we have three experts who will enlighten and empower us. Before I introduce the first speaker, please take note of the following information. Do follow GATCA on our social media handles and send feedback regarding this webinar to info@gatca.org. This webinar will be uploaded onto the GATCA website, www.gatca.org, and on the YouTube channel of GATCA. If you have just joined us, please introduce yourself on the chat page, and I will do well to acknowledge you. Send your questions to the Q&A chat box, and I will get our panelists to answer them during the Q&A session. Our first panelist is Ms. Dorinda Saki Mensah. Ms. Dorinda Saki Mensah is a watch manager, an area controller, and a member of the safety team in the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority Air Traffic Services Department. She is a resilient air traffic controller, one of the few lady air traffic controllers we have in the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Ms. Dorinda Saki Mensah, our first panelist. Dorinda, you are welcome.
Thank you. Greetings, everybody. Today we are here to do a presentation on team resource management. So what is team resource management? Team resource management is defined as strategies for the best use of all available resources, information, equipment, and people to optimize the safety and efficiency of air traffic services. It originated approximately 30 years ago, evolving from cockpit resource management, where the focus was with the pilots, to crew resource management, focusing on the crew members on board, and finally, team resource management, relating to ATC. When it comes to recognition, Eurocontrol, ICAO, and IFATCA recognizes team resource management and advocates for its implementation throughout an ATCO's career. And Eurocontrol has taken the initiative to prepare the first team resource management program and has been able to implement it. IFATCA has also recognized team resource management and has been discussed in several IFATCA conferences. When we come to the benefits, how does team resource management benefit us? Team resource management mainly reduces team-related work incidents, enhance operational task efficiency, improve utilization of staff resources, enhance continuity and teamwork in the ATM, increase sense of belonging to a larger, more efficient team, and increase job satisfaction. Let's look at some of the components of team resource management. Team resource management comprises of stress management, teamwork, team roles, impact of new automation, situation awareness, error, communication, and decision making. In the typical team resource management training, these components are treated as models for a better understanding of the ATCO. So for instance, for teamwork, we look at what is teamwork, how does teamwork affect the safety and work of the ATC team, team roles, how team roles affect the safety of teams, impact of new automation, how a new equipment affects the work of ATC. When we come to teamwork, the relationship between teams must be positive. Attitudes must also be positive, irrespective of religion, politics, etc. There should be support between team members in order to maintain high performance. Team roles. In a team, roles has to be defined so that members are able to follow leadership styles that fit the team should be recognized and ensure every member works according to their defined roles. When we come to communication, speaking and listening skills should be proficient, use of standard phraseology, effective coordination between sectors and teams, and briefing and debriefing during handovers and takeovers. Situation awareness. ATCO should maintain a mental picture of current situation, active listening, being able to hear back and read back, be able to monitor and scan runways, aircraft position, be able to identify conflicts and resolve them using the available tools, teams to assist during situation awareness and be able to assist during emergencies and abnormal situations. In decision making, all team members should be involved. Procedures should be followed and assessed. In resolving conflicts, members should be able to resolve their conflicts and differences in a team when making decisions. Error management, identification of errors, should be identified in a timely manner, and appropriate solutions should be used to correct it. Team assistance should be requested using standard operating procedures, and also regular training and refreshers as specified in the ATMOM and GCAD. Impact of a new automation. Safety assessment conducted during any time a new system is in place. Training of ATCOs to be proficient with the new system. ATCOs being accessible, ATCOs being able to access the system irrespective of design and positions, and always backup system should the system fail. Stress management. ATCOs should be able to identify stress, identify symptoms, and workload management in such a way that teams could have relief if need be. Healthy lifestyle, exercising, sleeping, eating well, spending quality time with friends and loved ones, and then also seeking medical assistance if need be. When we come to implementation, management should buy into team resource management and make all available resources and make resources available, such as the budget, recruitment, equipment, and training. ATCO should also buy into it and become part of them. And training of ATCOs in TRM should be initial training, unit training, continuation training. So training should start from ab initio till the time you retire. And then training should be done in a facilitation form. And at the end of each training, evaluation should be done for a continuous improvement of the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dorinda Saki Mensah. Insightful presentation you have given there. I, for one, have learned a definition for team resource management, being the strategies for the best use of available resources, being information, equipment, and people to optimize the safety and efficiency of air traffic services. One thing also that struck me is that team resource management, we must undergo training in team resource management, and you should start from ab initio up until the time you retire. And I've also realized that it is a holistic approach. It is not a concept that is looking at just a little portion, but it's looking at the whole team and the whole lives of the team. And great and insightful presentation. Thank you very much, Ms. Dorinda Saki Mensah. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions that you have for Ms. Dorinda Saki Mensah, you can put it into the chat box or the Q&A session. And during the Q&A session, we'll be able to answer them. Our second panelist is Mr. Max Bezina. Max began his career in aviation as an air traffic controller at Eurocontrol, controlling traffic over Belgium from their center in Maastricht, the Netherlands. For over a decade, Max held various roles at Eurocontrol, including training and management, while simultaneously furthering his own education with a degree in training and personal development and a master's in program and project management. In 2010, he moved to Madrid to lead ATC training at Senasa. Later, he became the CEO of Ingenav, a company he co-owns. His experience spans a broad spectrum of aviation and strategic leadership, characterized by his dedication to excellence and continuous professional growth. Under his leadership, Ingenav excels in consulting and training for air navigation services with a strong focus on innovation, human factors, and the integration of emerging technologies. Early in his career, Max became intrigued with what made us, human beings, unique within any safety chain in general and in aviation in particular. He got involved in human factors training, and in the early 2000s, he attended his first team resources management event. He trained to become a facilitator and later started facilitating team resource management sessions. In 2017, he started training future team resource management facilitators and has been active in team resource management ever since. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Mr. Max Bezina to give us his presentation. Max, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, Wahim, and good afternoon to everyone. So I'm Max Badzina. I will be presenting to you my experience in implementing team resource management in ANSPs. I'm very honored to have been invited to this. Apart from what has been already presented about me, I have been involved now in team resource management for more than a decade, starting being interested in human factors first, later on facilitating team resource management programs, which I'm still doing to date. And since 2016, 2017, I have been teaching, training the trainers to become facilitators in TRM. And this is what I can share with you. A lot of the credit of the knowledge is a combined knowledge before I start with colleagues from Eurocontrol who lead this program in Europe. There is material that we have been developing jointly or has been developed and is in use. Most of what I am giving is anyhow common knowledge about the state of the art of TRM, at least in Europe. So with that, one other minute about my company. I work for a Spanish company here in Spain, as has been told before. I used to be a controller myself, an area controller, and my company concentrates in consultancy and training in air traffic management. You'll see for the slide what we're doing, basically R&D, consultancy, and training. And within training, apart from being a training organization certified by EASA, we also deliver team resource management and human factors related training. And this kind of links to the subject of this presentation. So in this presentation, I'll introduce TRM. I will say why I think it matters, the delivery methodology, the benefits we see as an outcome of TRM programs, and implementations of implementing TRM in ANSPs as kind of the culmination, the end of the presentation. Introduction to TRM. What is interesting and most important to start with, TRM may have many objectives, as we see in the places we have implemented. There are many benefits in TRM, but first and foremost, TRM is a safety program. TRM aims at improving safety in air traffic control or in any other place where it is implemented. I'm saying this because we have seen also implementation in other air traffic services areas, such as the electronics personnel, the ATSEPs. We have seen implementations, as you will link with the flying community within crew resource management, another implementation such as the maintenance engineers of aircraft, etc. So we do TRM to improve safety. There will be other benefits, such as it will make it nicer to be working with nice colleagues at work. But all those objectives lead to the one and main one is that we want to improve safety. And we want to improve safety through the skills, both personal and interpersonal, that we need to work with when we're working in teams in air traffic control. So that is to start. I've mentioned CRM, crew resource management. The whole start, as it mostly happens in the world of aviation, comes from the flying world. So in the end of the 70s, the system was mature enough for us in aviation to start thinking that there is more that we can do to improve safety than just improving the engineering, both in the air and in the ground, and the technical knowledge of our staff. And since, let's say, psychology and human factors have been in the conscious of the aviation world from almost the very beginning, we have always thought about performance and about how to be good pilots, controllers, vice versa. And the idea was that there is more than just the technical part, and that there are a series of non-technical skills, sometimes called soft skills. We can talk about terminology in another presentation, but the point is that there has always been an idea that the human is the motor, is what makes things work. In the 1979, the idea was to deal with human error. I put it in parentheses because I am not sure I am fully aligned with the term human error. I think humans by default are what we are. We strive to do our best. We are very good at many things, and sometimes we have some defects in others. So that cannot in itself necessarily be called an error, but this is what the idea was, no? And it still is. We have some deficiencies, either because of lack of training or because of our attitudes. And if we improve those and also improve the sublime things about us, about helping others, being aware about something more than just ourselves, we will be improving safety. So this idea started in CRM, and looking a bit into a timeline in the 90s. So it took around a decade. Eurocontrol in Europe started thinking about how we can transpose or transfer CRM into ATC. By 97, there was a program which is, let's say, 80% similar to what we're doing today. The core was set there. Facilitation courses started the year after. And what is more of a highlight of the last decade is that in Europe, TRM is an accepted means of compliance for ATCO refresher training in the human factors domain. So in a nutshell, since 2015, there is a requirement that for controllers, operational controllers, to maintain their validations, apart from regular refresher training in technical skills, they need to do regular refresher training in human factors. And then there is a second level to the regulation, which is called accepted means of compliance, meaning clear descriptions on how you can comply with this regulation. It says that doing TRM within the refresher, the human factor refresher part of the training of a controller, is an accepted means of compliance to that. That gave, of course, a boost into what we have been trying to do since the late 90s, so to speak, because before it was mainly done as a best practice from people who believed that it improved safety. And since 2015, at least at the European level, EASA has rubber stamped that idea that, in fact, if we want to refresh human factors, there could be one way of reviewing the theory, but there is nothing better than talking about the practice. One other thing before I move on is that in terms of team resource management, we believe a lot in facilitation of the knowledge of the expert. And the expert in question is the air traffic controller. So the idea is not necessarily in TRMs to go and teach new subjects. It's to how to use the human factors concepts that air traffic controllers are familiar with, such as stress management, such as teamwork, leadership, communication skills, and see how are they being used and see where we can improve and the difficulties to put something that is described into application and what our experience is. And that we do through facilitation, as we're going to see in this presentation. So in a nutshell, TRM is a comprehensive system based on practice, as I said, and aimed at proactive application of human factors to improve team performance and safety. And we characterize this by defining the team as a whole. So when we do TRM sessions, we are, yes, acting on the individuals, because every individual needs to act to improve themselves and the team through themselves, no? That's the idea. But we're looking at the team as a whole. The team is as strong as the weakest link, we like to say. Well, that's the idea of TRM, etc. So we define the team as a whole. We focus on attitudes and behaviors which affect safety. We use practical training methodology based on participation and learning. We're going to see a bit on this in a few slides' time. And we include items about leadership, assertivity. If we're talking about leadership, we also think about followership, you know? Can everybody be a leader? Well, probably not, no? So what is it to be a good follower? And those are the kind of things that we look at. Interpersonal skills, communication. Is there something like a shared situational awareness? How do we take decisions based on what? Can we affect the decisions of others? Stress management, fatigue management, and so forth. And of course, we provide individuals the opportunity to review their acting of these things in operations and not only go into theory. Put it in another way, we are looking at operational understanding of safety. As we all know in our business, safety can be quite an abstract notion, being safe, not being safe. We want to go in TRM to the level of what is being safe in my team? What is being safe in my watch? How am I being safe? How could I be safer? How sometimes from whatever happened through the team dynamics with my colleagues, maybe I was not as safe as I could have been. This idea, this notion that safety needs to be understood from an operational perspective. Again, similarly, what is stress? We can have a theoretical background of stress being a mismatch between our perceived capacity and our perceived demand. However, how do we live that? How do we work with it? So the idea of TRM is putting operations into this and looking at how human factors affect daily work from a practical viewpoint. We want to share experiences. We know that a building has got 4 sides to it, and many times we only can see one side of the story. So if we join other people with us who have the same training and the same background, put them in different perspectives, we can see a bigger picture of what we normally see. So we want a sharing environment to be created within TRM. Why does it matter? Let's consider human performance first. Many times, what we see is what there is on this picture. An athlete, top-notch, riding a bike and going at 60 kilometers an hour for downhills, over 40 kilometers an hour or even more over a stretch of 100, all with the use of his or her muscles and a bike. No? This is what we see. However, in any human performance, what we see can be divided into let's say 3 quotients or 3 parts. No, we see the technical quotient. Everybody to make a bike race needs a bike, let's say. So that's the technical quotient. They need to know how to ride the bike. They need a good bike, etc. No, we can imagine this in ATC. We need the equipment. We need our procedures. We need the technical quotient. However, I can be given the same bike as this person, and no way on earth can reach the 40 kilometers an hour. So that's not enough. No, we need a physical quotient. How physically are we able to do what we set out to do? This quotient varies in any performance that we need to do. It's not the same physical quotient that there is when one is riding a bike or playing football or playing a piano or controlling traffic. Nevertheless, if we think about it, there is a certain physical quotient that we need to do safe air traffic control. We need to be healthy. There is there are medical tests that we need to go. We need to be in good conditions on the long term and on the short term when we are working. So there is a physical quotient. On top of those, there is an emotional quotient. We can get, to go back to this picture, the strongest person there is, giving them the best bike, and yet they will not win the race. Why is that? Because there is an emotional quotient. Let's say the personal and interpersonal skills that will allow this person to learn from their mistakes, listen to their coaches, overcome pain, struggle to meet objectives, work with a team environment. Biking is a highly team sport, even if it looks very individual, etc. So we have an emotional quotient. And if we go to air traffic control, I've already mentioned, we have a technical quotient, we have a physical quotient, and we have all this: time management, self-confidence, team play, approach to criticism, empathy, listening, communicating, etiquette, being a professional, coping with stress, troubleshooting, trying to find. And if we ask ourselves, how much of this do we do in formal training in ATC? Yes, we have good procedures, we have good equipment, we are trained to become good controllers, to identify the situations, to apply procedures to them. But how much are we really trained, apart from maybe human factors theory, about how to be humans within the system and act as humans with other humans within a team? And if we are saying that, the difference between a good artist and the artist is not their painting technique and the paint they show, but the way that they can express a feeling. If we are talking that the difference between the best tennis player, Djokovic or Nadal or Federer, or the new generation which is coming, and somebody with the best racket and a very, very fit body, is in the mental, is in the way they approach the sport, is in the way they manage their stress, that they look at the adversaries. If we think about this, how much of this are we paying attention within our business? And this is the emotional quotient that we are trying to do. Another notion about why does it matter is because a lot of time when we stay in the theoretical realm, we can only imagine things. So we have this notion, which I did not invent. This is Holnager, is a famous psychologist, that we have the notion of work as imagined. This is the procedures being described. This is what we learn that we need to do when it is done on a paper. But what we feel in operations and what we need to formalize through TRM is that there is work as done. And work as done and work as imagined are not always the same thing. In work as done, we have to adapt to changes in the output. Aircraft are not always coming at the same debit. Sometimes they're coming all in one bunch, and at other times we have to fight boredom. There are no procedures on how to do that. Sometimes our colleague is in a bad mood, and sometimes it's us who are in a bad mood. There's nothing written about that. Sometimes the system fails, and yet we have to provide safety. It is hard to imagine everything, yet in operations, everything happens. So the question is, how are we dealing with this? And within TRM, we will try to make this reflection. What are the links between work imagined and work is done? How did we deal with it? Can we bring anything from the work as done? Are there some procedures which are not well written and we could include them into work as imagined? How can we improve work as imagined to feed into work as done? How can we do this? So in asking the question, why does it matter? It matters because on the one hand, the emotional quotient is very important. TRM aims at working at that through non-technical skills. And the second thing is adjusting when there is complexity, and ATC or aviation in general is complex. It's complex because of the variabilities that there are. And we need to be ready to understand where those variabilities lead us and where is the starting point, and not to misjudge that procedures, because they do not fit the 100%, then they are not good, because we should not expect that procedures fit all the time. However, procedure which fits none of the time probably is a bad procedure, and we need to understand that as well. So what we try to do with TRM is to lead everything which may sound abstract into the ground floor. How do we live it on a day-to-day? Moving on, how is it delivered? I mentioned already a bit about facilitation, but before we go there, I would like to talk about modules. We talk about TRM modules here in Europe, at least. It's cutting the pie into different pieces, which, together they make the whole pie anyhow. So it could be cut into 8 or 6 or 3. What we do in the standard courses here is that we divide it into 6, what we call modules. And then when service providers are highly mature, they have been delivering TRM for a while, they mix and match things, because what we really want is to improve safety through managing team-related problems. But the way we put these building blocks, we talk about teamwork. What makes teamwork? What is teamwork? Team roles. They go hand in hand, these two. I mentioned the notion of leadership. We also need to mention the notion of followership. We also need to mention varying roles within operations. Sometimes I'm the executive controller, sometimes I am planning, or I'm an assistant. Sometimes my colleague is a supervisor, but then the same supervisor might be controlling in another hour. So how are those roles defined? Explicit roles, implicit roles, etc. We talk about communication. Here, not necessarily about phraseology, it's more about how we listen actively, how we transmit what we mean, how can we be assertive in our communication versus passive, etc. Situational awareness, what it is, how do we build it? Is there a team situational awareness versus only my individual one? How can we achieve it? What happens when it goes wrong or we lose it? Can we lose it? Things like this. Decision making as an outcome. We need to be aware of the situation to make decisions. How do we take decisions? When do we take less good decisions and why? How can we affect the decisions of others? And stress and fatigue management as a kind of a transversal thing. How does human performance is affected by stress and by fatigue, which is one other way of seeing stress. The way we do it is we try to include as little as possible of theory in TRM, because we assume that all the attendants have got a level of human factors theory and knowledge as a basis. No, because in our initial training we have human factors. So we have these module structures. Of course, the title. Let's say we take situational awareness, or let's take communication. We have a number of objectives that we as facilitators would like to meet. That's part of the program. We would like people to be aware that by looking at different perspectives to the same problem from different viewpoints, we can arrive to richer decisions. That could be an objective, okay, within this. And then we would have possible points of discussion. So what we do is that rather than giving a theoretical lesson about what situational awareness is and how you should do it because I'm telling you so, we create an environment in which there could be a case study, there could be an exercise, there could be a sharing that we create together to explore this notion, to allow people saying, well, this is how I have been doing it, but last time this happened to me and it didn't quite work well. And there would be another person, another qualified controller saying, well, that reminds me of this situation. And together we share this knowledge, which gains the knowledge of each and every person and allows us to find ways to meet the proposed objectives. The proposed objectives are from us, from the organizers. The content is from the attendants. So basically, the participants bring the content. WAD is standing for work as done, like in the kitchen example in a few slides ago. The participants bring the chaos. No, the work has done. This is what we want. We want them to reflect on the work they are doing. A skilled facilitator provides the framework and make things meet, make different perspectives join each other, make these notions even more stronger by asking questions, by knowing the process, by knowing the objectives that we want to go to, by proposing activities, by choosing the right case study, by making sure that everybody has their say and that we are going. And here I put a note that agreement is not required. And by this, what I mean is not that we are expecting people to fight in TRM, but what we want is to show different perspectives of perhaps the same building, and not necessarily agreeing that the best part of the building is the front or the back. We want people to bring their experience. And we know that those experiences, they are all leading to an idea, a notion to achieve safety, yet we all know that we achieve safety sometimes through different means. And those means are valid. And since we are in discussion mode in TRM, listening to each other and to these notions is what sums up to just do it, nothing is impossible, rather than two small things which don't make sense. Just do nothing, it's impossible. We bring it together. This is done through facilitation. Now, what I do with Eurocontrol, but and I do it as a business, is train future facilitators into getting comfortable with these modules, basically, with possible areas of objectives, with possible content in terms of decision points, as is shown here, and exercising them so that when they are in front of a class, which we call a TRM session, really, not to make it look like a classroom, a traditional classroom exercise, they know how to bring everything together and what the idea is. The benefits. I mean, at this point, things start being more or less self-evident. We have collected these, Eurocontrol mainly has collected these benefits from a number of queries and surveys that they have done through the years. Increasing of safety awareness. We know what's going on, and we know what we're going. Enhancement of the safety and the just culture. We're listening to each other. We're not afraid that we declare that, in the interest of safety, we have a work to go. So safety culture is an important thing. Being just in that culture and being able to express oneself and trying to improve is also important. Awareness of incident threats. Many ANSPs pick TRM themes or subjects coming from the trends that they have identified in the previous years. And if they think that intersector, for example, communication is needed, they would organize TRM sessions to actually improve this communication. So people are aware of those trends. Sometimes it's not a main objective. It leads to improvement of procedures. We might be discussing something between experts in which we do discover that some attention need to be done to this or that procedure. We make an impact from, let's say, the non-technical skills to the technical skills. Maybe there are some technical skills that need to be refreshed because we discover through, for example, the example I gave, that there is a problem in terms of coordination, that certain protocols or certain procedures are not being followed. Looking at areas in which we need more awareness. Maybe we have misconceptions about certain things, about what is expected from a leader or what is expected from a follower. And then we add other modules to it. We look at safety too. For those of you who might not be familiar with safety too, is a notion that we are using nowadays to say, since incidents or safety one issues are so rare, can we learn from the good things we're doing? Safety two is all the sublime and good things that we do that sometimes we take for granted. Well, it takes an effort to do them. So how are we doing as good as we do it? Let's formalize that. Let's rationalize this and learn from it. In TRM, we can also think about the good things. It's not only sharing things that need to be improved. And there is, of course, an open forum and a discussion helping. And finally, there is peer support. If we understand each other, we also have an indirect benefit that we want to work with other people. And here, it's amazing how people improve their performance after TRM sessions, not simply because they have changed radically things, but simply because they know that others are going through the same difficulties as they are, and there is more empathy, etc. So my final part covers implementing TRM, and as I understand, if there are questions in the end, especially about implementing, I would be ready to take these offline afterwards, since we are recording this session, of course. When we need to think about implementation, we need to think that TRM does not happen in a vacuum. In a place where there is nothing else going on, implementing TRM without human factors background, without a safety culture background, without people being used to meet and discuss and improve, it will be hard. So if we're talking about implementation, we would need to think about the level of maturity of the organization, and maybe there need to be, let's say, predecessors to TRM that need to take place. A certain amount of degree of human factor training. There could be a kind of a notion about the implementation of safety, how we're doing, how do we deal with incidents, how are we free to talk a bit about cultural issues, hierarchies, etc. So, when we think about implementation, we should first think that this is not to be implemented in a vacuum. Understand the reasons why to implement it. Are we check marking a need by our supervisory authority or civil aviation authority? Are we doing this simply to keep people happy, or are we really trying to improve safety? The more sublime our objective is towards safety, the better the chances that it works. I'm saying this because I have been in places in which the main objective was to let controllers voice their worries, but without perhaps managerial motivation to do anything about them. And what happens in those cases is that it backfires. After a while, nothing is happening except the controllers raising a voice of issue, and therefore there is a trust which is built into the system with no follow-up action. If there is no follow-up action to certain things, normally the next time you try to do them, they backfire at you. So, the reasons why to implement it, we want to improve safety. So TRM should not be in a vacuum. We need to provide awareness to decision makers. This is let's say, a non-tangible improvement. You cannot measure it very easily. It's not like, I don't know, you have 20 incidents over a period of time, you introduce short-term conflict detection, and you can measure that you have reduced from 20 to 10, or hopefully even more. Decision makers need to understand that there is a third part of the tripod. It's that we need people to work in our safety chain. We have procedures, we have technology, we have other counterparts, and these people, they need to work together. The difference between two good people working together and two less good people working together may not be evident at first place. In the long term, it will be evident through maybe sickness, maybe through conflicts, maybe through other issues. But the point is awareness to decision makers as to what to expect as an output of these kind of initiatives. Then, of course, there are harder, let's say, harder activities in the implementation, harder in terms of, less abstract. You need to train your team, and you need to plan the campaign. Where do we want to start? With whom? How are we going to brief people? Get them to expect that this is going to be a different ball game necessarily than attending a classroom where you're going to be told what to know and what to think. And pilot run, especially if it's new and the actual thing. And my final slide, I think, I'm not seeing the slides, this is from memory, is I put there a clock on the right-hand side. You need time. You need to plan this in advance. You need to have time to get the support, to get to work on it, to understand it, to train yourself, to find time to get people out of operations, out of the tower, out of the control rooms, to actually think about a program, to work on about a program. In more mature organizations, we say there should be a TRM coordinator who normally is a person who could be in neither or somewhere in between the training activities of the organization and the safety activities on the organization, this being something in the middle, really. So a TRM coordinator could be a figure coming from one or the other, but really needs to kind of liaise between the two. And then there are the hard and fast decisions, the location, the number of participants, the days of training. And if you get there, I'm ready then to answer to specific questions, mostly based on my experience and not on dogmatic information that we have about what works best in terms of number of participants, the location, where to organize it, how often and how long in each term. But maybe that's already level 2 implementation. The first thing is knowing that if we're going there the first time, that this is a safety program, that this is a different than simply teaching somebody what to do, because this is about performance. You cannot teach somebody in a classroom how to play soccer, football. They need to play it. You cannot teach somebody how to play the piano just from a book. They need to play it. And here is the same. You cannot teach somebody human factors, how to act with other people. They need to work on it in a practical way. So as soon as those are understood, we can go to the next level about saying, yes, there are benefits in improving safety with team cohesion, with harmony within the team, with skills about dealing with conflicts, because conflicts between people will always exist. And our expectation is not that they cease to exist, is that we know how to manage them and how to manage them in time before they escalate into something that could lead to safety issues, because these two people cannot work together. Imagine how bad that could be. And I think that is it. I would like to thank you. And there might be some questions here, if I understand, and if not, we can close. But from my presentation viewpoint, this is what I have, and I am ready to take questions online or offline as the opportunities may be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Max. At this time, I'll just take do a few acknowledgements, and then we would continue. And we have Mr. Mojieku from Gabon. He's the head of operations ATC unit in Libreville. Thanks for joining, Mr. Mojieku. We have the director of regional airports for the Ghana Airports Company Limited, Mr. Abrefa. We have Benedict Dogbe from GMET, Ghana Meteorological Agency. We have Abilio Pinto da Cruz from Angola and IFATCA. We also, he is the IFATCA MA director and former ATCO in Luanda. We also have Mr. David Ekwama Boateng, my boss, the director of Air Traffic Services, Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. We have Dr. Bedan Thendu. We have Titus Chisa. We have Mr. Derek Latte, the acting Safety Standards and Quality Assurance Manager for GCAA. We have Mr. Felix Nomende, and we also have Hodo Habalo Chipendu. I hope I heard the name correctly. Forgive me if I made any mistake. And it's good to have you. Continue to send us a hi, and we'll acknowledge you in due course. Okay. So Mr. Max Bezina will not be able to stay with us till the very end of the webinar. So we'll take a few questions we have for him. In a few minutes, he has to leave us. We will take those few questions, and then any other question that may come up, we'll make sure to send it to Max. He will answer them, and the responses will be sent to our panelists.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Thank you.
Okay. So one question that has come up is a lot of times ANSPs are looking at cost. I believe that's one of the reasons why they are always hesitant when something new comes up. And we want to find out, is there any cost involved in implementing team resource management in the ANSPs? And in your experience, having worked with some ANSPs, what should they look at, and how can they overcome this challenge?
Sure. Yeah, I do not want to hide behind long sentences. Yes, of course, there will be costs involved, because there's the cost of organization of such events, of course, relatively similar to the cost of organizing courses. And there is also the cost of having to take operational staff out of their day-to-day operational work, and that incurs a cost. No, so yes, there are costs. However, what we believe is that the benefits are over and above the cost that one may have. And I'll explain myself a bit well where to start and what to do to tackle the second part of the question. Imagine we have a problem between two units in which let's say as a trend, there are issues happening between a tower and approach unit. I'm only inventing, right? In which there is problems in coordination. They do not understand each other. Typical scenarios that we do not understand why the tower is doing these things. We think that they are doing them on purpose to us. Vice versa, we don't understand as tower controllers why the approach units are, refusing our requests, etc. There are ways to try to improve some harmony. One is, top down, you shall do this, you shall do that, you shall do that. We believe that has got its benefits, but it's also got its limitations. If it's humans who do not understand the whys about we're doing things and we're professional there, it will be hard for them to apply hard and fast rules. You shall do this, you shall do that. Another way of doing this is to do TRM sessions. Let's deal about how things are working, what are the priorities in this unit and the priorities in this unit, how are we taking decisions, why are we requesting these kind of things. A discussion would follow, an understanding would follow, some objectives would come, maybe not hard objectives that I shall leave this session and I shall understand what tower means, but I have sat with a tower controller as an approach controller, or I as a tower controller have sat with an approach controller in a TRM session. It's not just two people, it would be more. But we are understanding each other. That is of benefit to operations. That will, one, increase productivity, because we're working together now with two units where before we had a problem. That will increase our possibilities or probabilities of being safe, because we are identifying things on both sides for a common goal, which is safe and efficient traffic. That is increasing our demonstration as an organization that we want to do things right, that we are investing in our human resources. So all those have a cost, yes, but the benefit, I believe, is way on top of the cost. I'm not saying that that's the only way of tackling it. There might be others, such as having procedures, but we believe that if we are putting humans in the system, we need to deal with the human dynamics that happen as well. So back to you, Wahim. I don't know if you feel I have answered to your question.
Yes, you have done that. That's perfect. The last question that maybe you could look at is, apart from cost, what other bottlenecks do you experience from ANSPs? Are there any other things that make them hesitant, apart from the costs, in implementing team resource management in the organizations?
The other bottleneck is to identify what is expected as an outcome. I believe that sometimes we err from two aspects. Either we expect that this is a panacea, this is all of a sudden the solution to all our problems. We have a procedural problem and we solve it with TRM, or we have a technological problem and we resolve it with TRM. So that is one bottleneck. Then we discover that it's not solved as we thought, and therefore we think it's TRM which is not effective. No, maybe the objective. The second thing I can expect is that we try to expect results quickly, like we do in air traffic control. No, so climb flight level 330. The aircraft climbs to flight level 330. These are human processes. They take time. Sometimes they take even various cycles of TRM before there is cohesion and understanding. So it's an expectation bottleneck of trying to fix things which are not fixable with TRM and expecting things to change overnight just because you're implemented. This is a marathon race raced almost by a team. So it's not who arrives first, and it's not a 100-meter dash. It's that we arrive more or less all of us having run a good part of a 42-kilometer race together, if you see the example.
Thank you very much, Max. Very, very insightful presentation, and it's been spot on. And we hope that we'll be able to do a lot more talking. Hopefully, you would have some ANSPs contacting you from now, and you can do some good business also. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and have a good day.
You're welcome. It's been an honor to be invited, really, in part because it says something about me, to be listened, but also because I'm a firm believer in TRM and human factors. And by all means, with no expectations, if there are questions that come offline, I'm ready to take them. So it's been an honor. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you too, Max, and have a very good day.
Thank you.
Bye. We'll be communicating some more.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you too. Bye.
So we just had a question from Abilio Pinto da Cruz to Max. Unfortunately, Max had to leave us, but we'll direct that question to him so that he can answer it, and I will send it personally to you, Abilio. Your question was, how important is human resource management in a change from procedural to surveillance in ATC systems? So we'll make sure that Max gets this question and he would answer it, and we'll send the feedback to you. Our third panelist is Mr. Matita Chabalala. Matita Chabalala is a highly accomplished aviation professional with over 22 years of experience specializing in human performance, safety, organizational psychology, and human factors. His distinguished career has seen him excel in various critical departments within the aviation industry, including human resources, safety, strategy, and operations. Matita is a registered organizational psychologist with the Health Professions Council of South Africa. He is also an accredited aviation psychologist and human factors specialist affiliated with the prestigious European Association of Aviation Psychology. His expertise lies at the intersection of cognitive and humanistic psychology, organizational behavior, talent management, culture change, and change management. Matita's professional journey has been marked by a commitment to improving human performance in high-risk environments. He has a particular interest in non-technical skills training, which he has delivered to airlines, air navigation service providers, and other organizations operating in safety-critical domains. In addition to his corporate roles, Matita is the founder of Human Ego Coach, an organization dedicated to advancing human performance, ergonomics, and coaching. Outside of his professional endeavors, Matita is passionate about mentoring the next generation of aviation and psychology professionals. He's an advocate for diversity, inclusion, and the development of talent in high-risk industries. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Matita Chabalala. Hello, Matita.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. Let me get the technology sorted. All right. Is it okay now?
Yes, perfect. We can see your screen.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. Introduction. My name is Matita. Currently residing in South Africa. And I want to thank my colleagues that side in Ghana, Air Traffic Control, for the invitation to share some experiences in terms of implementing TRM in ANSP. And then also the colleagues that have spoken, Max and Dorinda. I think they've laid the foundation very, very nicely. So in some instances, I won't have to go into the details in describing things because they will have done that already. But where possible, I'll try and explain further. Okay, let me move the slides. So this is what I'm going to cover. Just basic introduction to TRM, and I think majority of what I'm going to cover, the colleagues have already spoken to. And then also, we'll talk a little bit who's responsible for TRM, whose responsibility is it? And then also the duration and facilitation that needs to happen when you are facilitating TRM, and then lastly, TRM modules and implementation. So you'll see most of my slides, they are from Eurocontrol, but I did that deliberately because they've got the foundation of that. But I'm going to talk to you about what has been implemented in the organization that I was working into, where we introduced the TRM. So I'll just contrast and say this is what has been proposed, and this is how we went about it. And I think that's the purpose of this discussion, is for us to share the knowledge. What have we introduced and how is it going? Before I do that, just quickly, what is Human Ego Coach? As the colleagues have said, the whole idea is about ensuring that the organizations operating in a high risk environment have got conducive, or they design conducive environment for people to prosper. All right, so let's get to the presentation. So I'm just going to share with you the definition by Eurocontrol. TRM is a human factors safety program, as Max and Dorinda have said. This is a safety program, basically, that aims to reducing or minimizing the impact of teamwork-related errors within the ATM system. And it also strives to develop positive attitudes and behaviors towards teamwork skills and human performance in air traffic management. So also it is if you look at it, it is a systematic approach, and it's mostly a proactive way of managing safety. In many instances, we tend to wait for things to happen and then react thereafter. But TRM is one of those programs that are mostly proactive. If you talk about safety 2, that's essentially TRM, what it does. To improve non-technical skills. Non-technical skills are the cognitive and social skills that complement the technical skills. So it's important, because in many instances, or what we were accustomed to before, the accidents, Terra Reef accident in 1977, the focus was mostly on technical skills. But since then, as the colleagues have alluded to, it was discovered that mostly a lot of things can be addressed through non-technical skills. So basically, TRM, it's what it does. It's mostly about the non-technical skills like teamwork, communication, decision making in a high stakes environment. So, but what TRM is not, okay, to move this, TRM is not the mechanism to eliminate error. Okay, that's one of the misconceptions. Okay, you don't do TRM with the sole intention of you wanting to eliminate error. Unfortunately, we are human beings, as Max has also alluded to. Error will always happen. We always make mistakes. That is the nature of us as human beings. But what is important is, what are the things that you put in place so that when something goes wrong, you are able to still perform as required. And then also, TRM is only one of the numerous tools that ANSPs have to improve their safety performance. So the plethora of programs that we can introduce to manage safety. So, for example, there's also what we can introduce things like mindfulness and all of those other programs. And it's not intended as a replacement for technical training, but should complement it. Very, very important. I mean, imagine a controller who's not proficient in air traffic controlling, but who's a good talker or a good communicator, who's well in working with teams. but is not technically proficient to execute air traffic control activities, that will be disastrous. So TRM is a complement of that. And it's not intended to counteract poor procedures or loosely defined roles, as per Eurocontrol, as you can see there. Okay. So if we've got poor rules or procedures or programs in place, TRM is not going to solve that. That you still need to do. But the important thing is that TRM will be able to highlight those gaps. So that's the benefit of TRM. It will be able to highlight those gaps so that you can address it. Now the question is, as you want to introduce TRM in your space, the question is, whose responsibility is it, or where does it reside? Does it reside in human resources? Does it reside in operations? Does it reside in the training department? Where does it reside, and whose responsibility is it? So in many instances, the responsibility is shared between various units of the organization. So there was an assessment or survey done by Eurocontrol in 2017 that I will share the results with you now in terms of where it resides and whose responsibility is it. As you can see there, mostly as when it started around 2011 there, it mostly resided in the unit management, driven from there. But as time goes by, with the blue one, that is 2017, it actually moved. The responsibility resided in the the department, where it gets executed. So when you want to implement it, it's important that you look into what is possible in your environment. Okay. Because you may find that maybe your training department is not as big, but your safety department it will be able to do that. Okay. So that's also okay. But over time, you can always transition from one place to the other. So what I wanted to share with you here is the fact that you don't have to crack your head in terms of where you want to put it. It's put it where you are able to manage it as a start. Okay. So don't delay because you don't have a well-functioning training department, as an example. Okay. You can put it in an HR department for the meantime, and then you can transition it later. So that's the message I want to put across. And then also the duration as well. How long should it be? As you can see, it's 1 day, mostly, as you can see that blue one. And then others, it's half a day. Others is more than half a day. Others is 3 days. So it varies in terms of how you want to do it. As Max has also said. So it's important when you implement it, just look at what is possible for you. Look at your resources, and improve as you go along. So what we had implemented in my previous organization, NSP in South Africa, we had a 5-day TRM course at the academy. Okay, a 5-day TRM course. We covered a whole topics, a lot of topics for the whole week, and then in between the year, then we'll go around the country, different units, and have a maximum 2 hours, facilitation of a particular topic. Remember, this 5-day one, it covers a whole lot of topics, but during the year, as you do in refresher, we'll pick just one topic for a year, and facilitate that. But that facilitation will happen at the units themselves. So that's why the fun is, because there you get to have a discussions in terms of how our controllers are feeling. And then also facilitation, probably you may be asking, how many facilitators do you need? You can have, I mean, more than one facilitator. We can have more than one facilitator. If it's a small group, one facilitator is okay. If you've got bigger groups, you can have two facilitators. More especially in terms of facilitation, when you look at TRM, the discussions that comes out of that, in some instances, it becomes very, emotional. People, express emotions, and it's important in some instances you have a second facilitator, somebody who's been trained in psychology. For example, for me, it will be easier to contain those emotions. It can get really difficult or hard for some people. So you need somebody to contain those emotions, because if you allow or you don't know how to contain those emotions, they can go out of the way and ruin the good thing that you want to do. So it's important that in some instances, if you know that you are going to facilitate with a particular group that is going through certain challenges, get somebody else who's trained in psychology to be able to assist you in that regard. So what are the benefit of co-facilitation? For example, it enables bigger discussion groups. So if there's a lot of people there, so if and there's two facilitators, you are able to do that. And it also be writing flip chart or what is being said by the participant for easy reference. Very, very important, so that you don't miss anything that is coming from the floor. It all helps the lead facilitator to keep neutral, balanced, and on track. Sometimes when it gets really, heated, if I can use that word, as a facilitator as well, you tend to be drawn into that space of emotional turmoil. So it's important when we have another facilitator, we are able to help each other. And also know the obvious one, ensure better timekeeping, and then it provides emotional support as well. Especially if you're facilitating with a difficult group of controllers. And it also enhances facilitator competence, as the facilitators that can give peer feedback to each other as well, and also provides additional energy to the group, because remember, TRM is not about presenting slides. It's not presenting slides. It's about facilitating discussions between peers about a particular topic of interest. Okay. So what I had started doing at the TRM course that takes a week, there was a section where we were teaching about emotional intelligence. So the one thing that one did was to assess the guys who are attending the emotional intelligence module on their emotional intelligence. Okay. Why did I do that? It was because in 2011, I did a research. My master's research one was about the coping resources, how do controllers cope with stress using coping resources. And five coping resources that are there. That is emotional coping resources, cognitive coping resources, spiritual coping resources, social coping resources, and physical coping resources. So with controllers, you may be thinking that because you need to be tough-minded, and you'll think that they will use cognitive coping resources to cope with stress. Guess what? That is not the case. The one coping resource that is used by controllers, it's emotional coping resources. Very, very important. Hence, from that point of view, when they came and been taught on TRM, I did assessments on emotional intelligence so that we give them feedback in how they manage themselves. Very, very important. So TRM, it's important. So you can add a whole lot of things around TRM to make sure that it becomes important and effective as well at the same time. So also, where is TRM facilitated from? Okay, as you can see from the screen there, mostly at the unit level, all right? At the unit level, and that's essentially what needs to happen, because it's about the guys in the front line, and then some others you see there at the ANSP training centers, and then also outside. Outside is mostly you book hotels and then you facilitate it there. Very little at headquarters. So this is that research by Eurocontrol. All right. So for us, what we did, as I've mentioned to you, the long bigger TRM was at the training academy, and then the refresher training happened at the unit. So we used both. We used both. So modules, there's, I think Max shared with us, but remember, there's no anything that fits everybody, you know. So you can decide for yourselves what is the pain points, okay? What are the issues that you're dealing with? If you are struggling with fatigue, probably that's where you need to focus on. So that's the purpose of this program. You don't have to confine yourself on a particular topic, but you can have as many as you want, and as you do the continuous training, you pick a particular topic. So, for example, this year, maybe concentrating on workload. You know, you go around the units and you go deeper in terms of how is the workload on the operational in operations, so that when you find challenges, you are able to go back as a facilitator to whatever departments to try and address those issues. So if there are issues of conflict management, that's where you will need to focus on. So very important, when you introduce it, just make sure that you pick the one that works for you. Implementing it, TRM program is typically introduced through the following steps, so you can follow whatever. So it's not a cast in stone, steps. You can have initiation. So initiation basically is you introduce it to senior management, okay, to middle management, to the people that you're going to facilitate training to. And you may think that it's obvious. It's not obvious, because they have to buy into this program. But especially if you don't have a just culture, if you have not implemented a just culture, many may not want to partake because they thinking that this is a trap. What do you want to find us? Do you want to get us into trouble and all those kind of stuff? So the senior management need to understand the importance of this, and then also create or have a promotion campaign. Very, very important, so that the message is consistent. And then also you have pilot sessions. Probably you can start with a bigger unit, see how it goes. You go to a smaller unit, see how it goes. You go to the one that is in the middle. You see how it goes, and then you come back and redefine or make changes where needed. And in this instance, it will go through because you will have gotten feedback from the controllers themselves. They would have given you that feedback on how they want it to be delivered, and then also you can just deliver the program. Colleagues, in the interest of time, this is where I'm going to end, and hopefully you found this interesting. I'm here, so if there are any questions, please send them through, then you can answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matita. Very, very insightful, comprehensive presentation. A few things that I learned. TRM is not a mechanism to eliminate error. You said that it shows you or it brings out what you need to put in place when something goes wrong. I also learned that TRM complements technical training and it does not replace it. And then TRM does not counteract poor procedures. Very, very insightful presentation. Thank you so much, Matita. At this time, I would like to acknowledge a few people who have signed in, and then we would move straight to the Q&A session. We have Mr. Charles Labi, he's the Regional Chief of Facility, Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. We have Madam Augustina Nketia Ado. She is the first female area controller in Ghana. We have Mr. Kwame Nahum. We have Mr. Abraham Lomote, the Search and Rescue Manager in GCAA. We have Mr. Andy Sabla. He's an ATCO. I believe he's currently in South Africa training. We have Linda Mwemba, and we have Tangai Francis Njok, and we have Mavis Njela. And thank you very much for joining us. We are so grateful to have you at this time. Okay, we will take, I think I have two questions. We'll quickly take them and then we'll sign out. I believe that we have learned a lot, but I know that our panelists are always available if you want to do some consultation, if you want to speak with them, if you want to ask more questions, we'll be able to get them. Okay, one question that has come up, Max talked a bit about it, but maybe would have Dorinda also threw a little bit more light on it. He says, what are some of the challenges that ANSPs encounter in trying to implement team resource management?
Okay, so in implementing team resource management, funding is number one, training, facilitators, and ATCOs buying into it.
Excellent. I like the part about ATCOs buying into it because we all know that if you don't have the ATCOs or if you don't have the people you want to implement the team resource management with, if they don't buy into it, or if they don't even understand it, it will be difficult for them to really walk with it and then push it forward. So indeed, ATCOs, and of course, like was mentioned by Matita, management must buy into it for it to be able to be successful. Thank you very much, Dorinda. And we'll take our next question. We have one that came up, and somebody was asking, in jurisdictions where a high level of safety culture is practiced, will we say team resource management, will it be necessary in such a jurisdiction? For we all know that in air traffic control, a high level of or high standard of safety is always maintained at every point in time. And then when you look at jurisdictions where this safety level is even increased higher, will team resource management indeed be needed or will it be applied in those places? I don't know if Dorinda will say something about it, and then Matita can also give us a response.
Is it?
Could you give us the question
Is it written here? I was. I'm losing you, the network. I'm losing you. You're intermittent. Is it written down here? Then I can read it and understand.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I was asking, we know that air traffic control generally has a high level of safety standards maintained all the time. Now, we also know that there are jurisdictions where this level of safety is always a notch higher. So in such jurisdictions where we don't, let me use the word, we don't tolerate errors in quotes. So errors are very much minimized. In such jurisdictions, will team resource management be said to be necessary? Do they also have to open themselves up to team resource management, or is it for only places where errors and incidents and accidents are prevalent?
Okay,
Remember what? Okay. Go ahead,
okay,
Dorinda.
okay. So team resource management is a kind of training that you should follow through ab initio till retirement. It's a culture that you have to live. So it doesn't really mean once there are no errors or incidents, team resource management cannot be practiced. So it's something that should be part, whether there are errors in places or no errors in the facilities. Yeah.
Great. So regardless, you still need it. Thank you very much, Dorinda. Matita, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes. So TRM, as I said, it's an proactive approach. Okay. So, and what you need to have in place, it's a well-functioning reporting system that facilitate just culture. Okay. So that when things goes well, people are able to provide you with the details and information of what is happening and all of that, instead of just waiting for something to go wrong and then we start and say, no, we want to fix. Remember, TRM is not a quick fix. It's not a fixing mechanism. It's something that you put in place. Like Dorinda is saying now, you need to be exposed to TRM when you enter the organization until you retire. So it has to be part of your life, and that can only be managed through a properly um, introduced just culture. Thanks.
Okay. A properly introduced jazz culture facilitates good team resource management. Great. Do I have any more questions? Okay, I don't know if maybe two facilitators or two panelists could talk a little bit about that question that was directed to Max. How important is team resource management in a change from procedural to radar? I don't know if you can give some little highlights on it.
Can you ask the team to increase the volume?
Oh, sorry. How
Yes.
how do
Okay,
you
now I can hear you.
read me strength 5, ne?
Yes, but intermittent, but I can hear you now. Yeah,
Okay.
quiet.
I was asking how important is resource management in a change from procedural to radar? Maybe I don't know if
Remember,
Dorinda. Okay,
no,
sorry.
remember,
You can go ahead.
yes. I need to find a way of responding to this. Remember, procedural and radar, there is different skill set, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
So radar, using radar to control procedural, you don't use.
Exactly.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Matisse, I can hear
And
you.
you can hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. Brilliant. So I was saying, so the difference between the two is mostly the technical skill, isn't it? One is using radar, the other one is not using radar. So TRM is about non-technical skills. They're all important, whether you are using radar or not using radar. So, for example, if we talk about emotional intelligence, all right, how do you deal with emotions when you are under stress? Okay, they're both important, whether you work in radar or procedural. So it shouldn't be the case of is it important for these ones who are working this sector and not important for these ones who are not in the working sector. Remember what I said, the non-technical skills support the technical skills. The only difference is the technical skills between the two, but both need these non-technical skills.
Thank you very much, Matita. I don't know, Dorinda, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think in maybe transitioning from procedural to radar, you need to do the safety assessment of it, and then also train the personnel, let them be proficient in using the radar if they are not proficient with it.
Thank you very much, Dorinda. We'll take a few more questions and then we'll probably sign off. Time is fast spent. One question from one of the viewers is just culture on TRM, is it only for articles or is it something that can be applied anywhere in any field, especially other aviation fields? Hello, Matita.
Yeah, can you just repeat that? I missed when you just said just culture. What follows that?
Okay, one viewer was asking, just culture, team resource management, are they concepts that are only applicable to articles or can they be applied in other aviation fields?
Oh, okay. All right. No, it does apply. So, for example, the ANSPs as well, the technicians as well. But for technicians, what we have is MRM, maintenance management resources, instead of TRM. So just like with the pilot, it's CRM, and then air traffic control TRM. So you can have those guys. So for example, where I was, the TRM refresher training will have the AIM guys also attending it. So it's applicable across the board. It's just that why the focus is on these frontline operators like pilots and air traffic controllers. It's mostly because they are the first line of defense. When something happens, they are the first ones to encounter. So the focus has always been on them, but this can be implemented across the board.
Thank you very much, Matita. Dorinda, any comments?
Well, as Matita said, it can be applied anywhere, even in the rail sector and other places too. Thank you.
That's great. That's great. Team resource management is for everyone, irrespective of the aviation field that you are in. And you can take the concept and apply it appropriately. We have a last question that I will take, and then we would sign off. Okay, can team resource management be implemented in an ANSP where SMS is in its infancy? And then you can add that it's just culture and enabler of team resource management. Let me take it again. Can team resource management be implemented in an ANSP where SMS is in its infancy and is just culture and enabler of team resource management?
Yes. So you can remember TRM. The focus is on supporting safety. As we start, so TRM supports safety. So you can start small. You don't have to introduce a big bang approach. You can, for example, look at your operations and see what are the challenges. If you are struggling with, as I said, I made an example to say, if you are struggling with fatigue at your space, so that's where you'll start focusing on. If you're struggling with leadership in your space, for example, how do you implement SMS if leadership do not understand safety itself? So it means that safety leadership, as one of the TRM modules, can facilitate or assist in ensuring that that SMS that is in its infancy, it gets, facilitated quickly. Just culture, yes, it's an enabler of TRM. Remember, with TRM, the one thing that we need to remember with TRM is the fact that it is driven by the operational staff. We just facilitating as facilitators, but they are the driver of that. So if they are the drivers, is the environment conducive for them to talk about the issues that they are struggling with? So if we do not have a just culture, it means that they will not be able to speak freely. They will not be able to tell you what is happening when you're facilitating this program. So it's important that we have a well implemented just culture. You need to work on that. It's an enabler of TRM. And then also you need to have that, what do you call, a reporting system in place as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Matita. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that you have gained a lot of insight, a lot of knowledge this morning into afternoon, or maybe early morning, depending on which side of the globe you are on. And we would say a big thank you to Dorinda, to Max, and to Matita, our panelists who have shared very valuable information with us. I have been inspired, I have learned a lot, and I know all of our audience have been inspired as well. We want to take a special or a little moment to thank the executives and members of GATCA, as well as the GATCA Technical Committee for making this webinar happen. Our special thanks also goes to Ghana Civil Aviation Authority for their immense support over the years and for hosting the venue for this webinar series. We are very grateful to you, GCAA. To the team that worked tirelessly to make this webinar run smoothly, I'll say Ayiko. And to our audience, you have been phenomenal. Thank you for participating. We wouldn't have had a successful webinar if you hadn't joined. And we are grateful to you for your participation. We'll encourage you to keep checking our website and our social media handles so that you'll be the first to know when a new date for our new webinar is announced. And just for information, this webinar recorded will be uploaded on our YouTube page and also on the GATCA website so that you can tune in, listen, and learn a bit more. I would say thank you, and as we say in Ghana, medase, and bye-bye.